My name is Rajdeep, and I'm from AsiaSat, Hong Kong. I have been given the responsibility of keeping you guys entertained for next 45 to 60 minutes. Unfortunately, we have an episode where our moderator is held up at Prime Minister's office. Therefore, in the lieu of him, I'm taking up responsibility to moderate the session as well as be the speaker. So you will see me in a double role. And our objective and endeavor would be to provide you with the informations and the latest trends and regulatory environment in India, so that you take away with a greater information from this session. I think to begin with, it is important to say that Indian Space Congress that we are here gathered for next 3 days, which speaks about the growth of Indian sector into the space, where satellite communication plays one of the very integral part of the ecosystem. It would be injustice to not capture the broadcasting, which has been playing integral part since 1990s in India in the satellite spectre. A lot of my friends and colleagues on the dais and then of course in the room are well aware and probably more educated than me when it comes to the importance of broadcasting sector and its influence on the satellite communication. Therefore, in that light, it is very important for all of us to capture the broadcasting role and the industry landscape in the changing space sector, so to say, of the Indian growth story. And therefore, this chapter of session of the broadcasting in this changing regulatory and technology complex shift is very important for us to discuss. Today with me, I've got with me on the dais one of our industry stalwart, and probably I can say that broadcasting in India has incepted from them. So needless to say, Mr. Amitabh Kumar, who has for many years has been with SL Group, which is a Z pioneer broadcaster in India, and right now he is as a consultant to Dish Network. He is with us, and I've also been joined with me on my panel the country manager of Intelsat India, which has been known as Past 10 from the early days of the broadcasting in India. Country manager Harsimranjit Gill with me on the panel. So I think to begin with, thank you Vishal. To begin with, I would like to hand over a mic for a brief introduction and giving you the context, gist to my fellow dais holder, Amitabh ji.
Can you speak from there?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to speak from here because I don't want to fall asleep sitting there. Okay, so the topic of regulation and broadcasting is really very old, and I have seen it for all of the 25 years I have been there. Believe me, my hair are not so white as they appear. It's only because of dealing with so many regulations and all the time, trying to go to a meeting with so much data. So I am really exhausted, but I think today, now that I am getting the opportunity to speak on it, I think there are a lot of issues here that we, all of us, who really love broadcasting and who are, making their livelihoods from broadcasting in India need to see. And that is particularly, because the regulations are that, the technological developments are coming very fast. Like the OTT and the video and the social media. And, there seems to be some kind of an effort to try to grapple all these things and try to control everything together into one basket, which some people can control. So that's a massive exercise which is going on, and we are of course one of the players, mostly in linear broadcasting, who are trying to understand what is going on, and how this whole thing needs to be really tuned to in a way that it helps everybody in the industry. What we have seen basically is that the regulation in this industry, they have been impacted by Murphy's laws right from the beginning. Some of the Murphy's laws, which at least one of them is that, if there is a policy or a regulation made, either it will have no impact or it will impact the sectors in the most adverse way possible. So that is actually the Murphy's law. And that is what we have been seeing is happening. To start with, the broadcasting word, the word broadcasting, it started way back in USA when people were actually broadcasting using terrestrial transmitters. The people in India who were doing broadcasting at that time were actually not really broadcasters. Only Prasar Bharati was a broadcaster. What people, let's say like Zee or Star or Sony, they were doing was that they were creating content, and then it was being delivered via a satellite link in most cases, which was an activity which was external to them. So Zee is not actually a broadcaster in the sense that we don't broadcast anything. What we do is that we create content, and we are using a teleport to get it uplinked. So that's one aspect that we have to keep in mind, that people in this industry are not really all of them only broadcasters. So for example, let's take the case of Zee. It was and it has been into linear channels. So you got a number of channels of Zee which are flowing into, let's say, 50 channels like Zee TV, Zee Cinema, and so on. At the same time, when the things started changing, like Netflix and Prime and so many, now there seems to be about 21 of them. I think one day I'll be able to remember all the names, but today is not that day. So what has happened is that all the broadcasters, so-called broadcasters like Zee, they have moved into delivering this also via OTT. So there is like Z5, or for Star, there's Hotstar and so on. So therefore, all the people in this industry who were considered to be broadcasters, but actually they are not. They are now some kind of a content generating machine. And of course, there is much more competition. There are players who are pure OTT players. There are players who are only on YouTube and so on. But then this is the industry. So this is actually one dimension of industry to understand, that people in this industry who are typically branded as broadcasters are not actually only broadcasters. They are content generators, and they are not really purely impacted by some kind of regulations coming in which affect one aspect of their delivery of channels. Now, unfortunately, the regulations which have been brought in this industry, they have been extremely, I would say, stringent, and the objective has been always very clear, though not to everyone. One is, of course, to maintain a complete control on what is being uplinked, what is being downlinked, and what exactly, who are the broadcasters, whether they got a clearance or not, and so on. So that's how they started, and this is one set of uplink, and downlink guidelines which came into the industry to start with. But as the industry has been growing into, let's say, OTTs and linear distribution of the same channels which are going also on the satellite, So things have started to, to in a way hot up, and the people are now trying to grapple with that because they come under the IT Act, and they are on the internet, so they don't want to be seen as controlling the internet, but they want to still control what is being shown. So there is a very strange amalgam of things which is going on to try to control that. And even though the recent, day before yesterday, whatever TI regulations don't really want to control the OTTs, there is a definitive indication of the way the government wants to go. The unfortunate thing in the whole thing is that we, if we consider ourselves in a majority as a linear broadcaster or as a distributor like a DTH operator, they are majorly influenced or affected by how the regulations in another sector are being formulated. So if OTT is going to be regulated, they're going to regulate content, not show obscenity, not show smoking, not show X, Y, Z up to, eternity, then this sector there is a different impact on this sector. Whereas if some certain things are allowed in another sector, then this sector, gets impacted. So the regulations which have been coming in this sector are multiple. Actually, they would form a big encyclopedia, right from uplink, downlink guidelines to the NTU, the network tariff orders, the orders on what you can put in a bouquet, what you can't put in a bouquet, how they can be priced, how they cannot be priced, how much money the cable operator will get, how much money the DPO will get. Everything is defined. But what is not defined, this is the output. If I generate a channel or if I distribute a channel, everything is defined. How much I can charge, how much will X get, how much will Y get down the stream and so on. What is not defined is, so output is defined, but what is not defined is my input costs. So whether I spend X amount on generating content, or for example, if I take satellite and the rupee has been sliding, right from 43 to 84, if my cost doubles, so the input is double, but the output is fixed. So there is no real, understanding the sector as to what exactly is going on. Then another dimension of the whole thing is, of course, that, we as India, we also want to be seen as, a part of the global, let's say, media machine, if I can call it. We want to be seen that, we are contemporary, we are not overly burdening the system. So we want to be seen as a part of the global, enterprises. We want to invite foreign companies to come in and so on. So the impact of that is that, unfortunately, it's a very big mix, what is happening. So we are letting everybody come in, our doors are open, it's a global village and so on. But then the companies in India, they need to be restricted in a large number of ways. So these are actually the international and market force developments which need to be balanced. And I believe that, this is something that doesn't end with one set of regulations which are provided by the TRAI. This has to continue as a continued interaction between the industry and the regulators and also the officials of different, ministries and I would say academia of universities and so on. Because it can't be left to only a certain set of bureaucrats to be able to, because it's beyond anybody's comprehension. We have to be fair to them. Things are changing too fast. Then also, the technology in this sector has been changing very rapidly, more rapidly than people believe. For example, now with all the LEO satellites coming in and a massive amount of, let's say, internet being available, we can't envisage what kind of services, will or could be delivered and would start to get delivered in different parts of the world, and then they would need to consider the Indian impact. So those things are far beyond the regulation as they stand today, because there is no uplink, there is no downlink on those satellites, but yet they can deliver huge amount of video. And if video is what they want to consider as a transmission, or if they want to consider as broadcasting, then there is a problem, because there is no way to control it. And of course, another set of problems which is some kind of an uninvited problem for us is the spectrum issue, which I was trying to understand sitting in the other room, but it was too cold, so I came out. I'll read it somewhere else. So basically, there are certain commitments which India has made in WRC 23. There are certain commitments which India has made in WRC 27. And there are certain bands which are currently used by broadcasters, like in the C-band, 3700 to 4200, and 5950 to 6450, and so on. So those bands are all under threat of the mobile industry, because they believe, or they claim, that those are the only bands where effective 5G can be delivered. And therefore, this is going to be a continuing battle between all of us, because the satellite industry is today a big revenue earner, as we think, but not the government. The government thinks the spectrum is a bigger revenue earner. But the fact is that most of the people in India, the villages and the more rural areas and so on, they today still receive television via broadcasting C-band or in the KU band and so on. Those bands are taken away. There is no more going to be any that kind of a reception for them. So that takes away large amount of media, entertainment, education from their domain. So therefore, today nobody can claim that there is a closed answer or there is a final answer to everything. Everything is open, and I believe that all the the forces who are lobbying in this sector, they are trying to gain whatever be their share. And this battle will continue, but I believe that this country still has people who realize that if a policy is going in a certain way and it is not really helping the majority of masses, then there needs to be a correction which has to be done. So I'm sure that the things will always tend to come back to what we call as normal, even though we see a lot of peaks and all that, to try to give it to the mobile operators and so on. But things will come back to normal, and we should have a very balanced development in all the markets. So sorry, I have taken much more time, but I'll just come back to.
I can see you emotional on this dilemma.
Yeah.
Since you wear I must say, for the advantage of our audience, that he wear multiple hats, right?
Besides broadcaster, you're also a DPO, right? So,
yes.
And of course, you have your experience both with cable and hits also. So I think you are probably the most apt for this session. But I can understand if we can put it a little bit more in a structured way so that we can transmit more accurate information as to the real challenges and what shall we do, or what is your recommendation. I think one part is to express the dilemma which you very correctly mentioned, but I think if we can take some time, take Harsimranjit also, and then we can get into the Q&A. That time we can get probably more input, because there are so many things I want to ask you, right?
Yeah. So I think I'll let you gentlemen speak,
Sure.
and then we can discuss something more. Yeah, thank you.
So I'd like to, Harsimranjit, if you're comfortable here, you want to go and that's fine. But I would like to have your view as to from the satellite operator's perspective, right? As such, that as an Intelsat, everyone knows that you've been in India for decades now. What is your take on this evolving sector? And from the satellite perspective, what do you see this technological shift? And how are you taking up this changing landscape from the operator perspective to value it? If you can just put some light on that.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. Thanks Rajdeep. So, see, Intelsat is the largest geostationary satellite operator in the world. So we operate a hybrid network of terrestrial connectivity as well as geostationary satellites. So primarily still for Intelsat, the media distribution, broadcast distribution business is bread and butter and contributes immensely to our revenue. Intelsat has been, let's say, expanding the verticals across maritime and aviation. So we have a significant presence in the maritime industry. Over 3,000 aircrafts connected using, for the in-flight connectivity using Intelsat satellites. So just to address the topic of broadcasters and the changing regulatory environment. So from Intelsat's point of view, so Intelsat has been in India for over 40 years. And primarily the focus has always been on the C-band broadcast distribution. And even today, our key video neighborhoods, IS-17 and IS-20, carry probably more than half of the media broadcast traffic over India. And in addition to that, so we have India's only hits headed in the sky operator, which is on our IS-39 satellite. So that's again C-band delivery. So for us, it is the most critical market segment and where we have been focused for a long time. And from a broadcast media point of view, so we see that the segment is definitely evolving. OTT is putting pressure on the broadcast side. But our understanding is that the broadcast segment will continue to grow over the next 5 to 10 years. OTT market share definitely will increase over the next 5 to 10 years. But satellite still stays the predominant and the most reliable way to deliver content across a wide area. You can't have IP connectivity everywhere. So we are seeing hybrid use cases where customers would use a wider beam to deliver across a country as wide and diverse as India, but use IP links to deliver to smaller markets which are outside the footprint. So that's on the broadcast side. So, and even from the regulatory point of view, we see a lot of challenges on the C-band. I think Mr. Amitabh has rightly highlighted the challenges it will create moving forward for the broadcasters. So I think one thing probably it should be crystal clear that this is a spectrum which is not held personally by anybody. It is shared by all the satellite operators, right? And our position as Intelsat is that we continue to make efforts globally to protect the fixed satellite services spectrum across the country as well as around the world. And okay, so 1 second. Yeah. So so Rajdeep, just to address the regulatory efforts we have been doing on the broadcast side, so we have started monitoring the 5G trends and we have started advising our customers, we started preparing in case there is an impact on the C-band like it happened in US. And we try and prepare our customers, start the migration process, start manufacturing alternate band satellites as early as possible. But I think moving forward, so our focus on developing a hybrid network is going to make a lot of impact. Our next generation of software-defined satellites are able to deliver capacity where the customer needs it, when the customer needs it. And we see a lot of broadcast-specific use cases which are going to develop. So we already have customers on our high-throughput satellite which are using those satellites for contribution feed requirements, as well as developing hybrid terminals which can work with 5G as well as agnostic across satellites. So regulators need to balance the requirements of expanding telecommunications segment with the satellite requirements. So I think I'll just leave it at that the satellite industry in India, broadcast industry in India is a significant contributor to the Indian economy. And I think we need to take a balanced approach and try and find a way to balance IMT. So mobile requirements with the needs of the broadcasters. Thank you.
Thank you, Harsimranjit. I can see the energy levels is going down, okay, and I might invite question and answer a little bit earlier than anticipated, but before we enter into that part, I just quickly want to give my 2 cents onto the present landscape that I see and experience. I think it's important to put into the perspective that what is the landscape look like. I think being based in Hong Kong, when I see a 8 million population place, when I talk to them, 216 million TV household, they go baffled. They have no idea. They can't comprehend. That's the sheer size of India's content and media landscape is. We are the second largest content market, right? We have 900 TV channels. And pay TV, close to about 325 pay TV channels, right? So in terms of the revenue, when I look at the TV industry, it contributes about $17 billion. But when I look at the trend that is going on, over the last 3 years, the pay TV has been decreasing from about 130 million revenue to going down to about 118 million. So there is definitely a cause of a concern among the broadcasters, and we have witnessed it in the recent happening in last 12 months with a lot of merger and consolidation of the content owner. We have also witnessed some of our free-to-air broadcasters reducing their channel, which is very alarming, right? So we have seen that post-COVID there has been a lot of restructuring of the content and the broadcasters. So there is definitely, we see an amount of sort of a dilemma in the broadcaster. When the technology is shifting, right, from the linear to OTT, whether to be or not to be, we have seen the largest broadcaster like Disney is reviewing from OTT to linear. We have seen Netflix, who's been looking at coming into the linear channel. So I think be it a large or a small side broadcaster, there is still amount of dilemma whether to be or not to be. And in this dilemma and creating a differentiator, today they are both on OTT and they are also on a linear. But when I day-to-day interact with my customers, the simple thing that I hear and dilemma is that where is the money? How can I make the money? And when I look at the regulatory perspective specific to India, there has been a technological shift and regulatory shift happening both in the, as Amitabh ji mentioned, on the distribution platform, which generally generates the revenue. And we have witnessed the rise of the free platform in India. And therefore, even the broadcasters are in a dilemma whether to be on the free dish or to be on the pay TV platform. So, all in all, there are various factors that are driving the decision making into the broadcaster. I think it is very important, therefore, in the context of the National Broadcasting Policy, which TRI just put the recommendation, it is important that all the stakeholders take the people on the board, broadcaster and the DPO, to create a homogeneous and congruent policy which can grow the business or grow the broadcasting industry rather than coming down from about 952 to 900 channels, right? So I think it's very important that today we take a stock of the industry and grow forward. But having said this, I think I would like to ask a specific question to Amitabh ji. I mean, having this opportunity, I do ask him in general in a meeting, but I think now that I have opportunity to ask in front of the dais, I would like to ask him that this different dimension of regulation and technology shift, how exactly it is changing the course of Dish or SL Group, right? I mean, since you've been associated with this, so if you can, and also of course I know you are a part of the National Broadcaster Association, NBDA. If you can probably wear that hat also and tell us something that how this transformation or changing regulatory is impacting.
Yeah, so actually, Rajdeep, we have been, we don't take all these things which are impacting the industry in a linear way. For example, let's say the tariff policy or the uplink policy, these are all linear. But if you try to, combine them together, then it becomes something like a Rubik's cube or an octahedral. So we take it in that sense that, there are multiple dimensions, and each of them, they impact the industry in a different way. So some of the dimensions, which we have today is, of course, the format of the content. For example, it can be OTT, or it can be video, or it can be linear, it can be cinema, it can be songs, and so on. So that really doesn't matter. It should not matter, actually. But it seems to matter to the regulators as to what it is. So therefore, this is something that has been impacting the industry, and we need to, be able to address that. For example, there's a different license for news, a different for sports, a different for GEC channel, a different for cinema, different for regional cinema. So I don't know where we are going. It's like the reservation policy in a way that, you keep on dividing and subdividing. But that's not what the industry is. Today, if you see on OTT, the South movies which are dubbed in Hindi, they are doing much better than the mainstream Bollywood. So therefore, we need to be able to amalgamate all the, the different elements and, create one dimension, which is, let's say, video or content generation, which TRI also has emphasized. The other dimension is, the uplink and downlink policy. And I think, that has become pretty dated, because it had the inception about 20 years ago, and you had the uplinking and downlinking guidelines. But today you can deliver the same content to the, let's say, the DPOs, the cable operators, or the fiber distributors. Today there are very few conventional cable operators. They are all fiber distributors. So we can deliver to them over very high speed, links. It can be 4K, and it can be those kind of things. Then the third dimension, is about technology, and the technology has been changing all the time, but I think, it takes time to get updated in regulations. Excuse me. And that's something, that we need to be able to address much faster than we are doing today. And finally, we have the resource basket, which is given to everybody to be able to run their services. It's given to telecom operators that, okay, you have got 700, 800, 900 megahertz, 23, 1800, and so on. You run your service on that. Similarly, we have the terrestrial broadcasting who got 600, 700 megahertz, and so on, which of course others are now trying to take away in a way that, or they are trying to remodel it into direct to mobile and so on. But then spectrum is a universal resource which everybody needs to survive. It's like air, actually. If you take away the air, then you can't survive. So the C band, the KU band, we need to be able to have sufficient amount of it based on the policy which is in place. Today, if they tell us that you don't need to uplink anything, why do you need to uplink? You send all your channels to all the operators. Today, there is so much amalgamation between operators that there are just about 5 DTH operators and maybe about 20 major cable operators. So they can tell us that you give these 25 links. You don't need to uplink and downlink. So that's one way of doing the things. Then we don't need the spectrum. But at the same time, they need to have a bigger understanding. And I was very happy to hear InSpace saying, that they are trying to regulate certain things in a certain way. So for example, I'll give you an example. OneWeb is still going to be using the KU band spectrum, which is used also in DTH. And in the US, there have been some court cases where they have observed interference. So, we obviously today it's not there in India, but then we are concerned that, it should not start happening in different parts of India at some point of time. Similarly, the interference between 5G and C-band, that is well known that it is there, going to be there. To what extent it can be mitigated is a question that people will need to answer, the policymakers and the broadcasters and so on. But we want the policy to be, very liquid in the sense that if there is a need, then we should be able to have the flexibility to give the content, whatever it may. It can be even OTT content via fiber, and do away with certain things which are not really required. So these are many dimensions that we always keep working on via different bodies, via associations, and there are many very good associations in India which represent all the broadcasters, all the cable operators, all the digital operators, and all the news broadcasters and so on. And then everybody is working to the same goal, to benefit the customer.
Sir, I want to ask you a top-up question that I remember you were the first one to apply for the KU band uplink permission, correct? You've been granted for the linear channel I'm talking about.
Yes.
So, did you pursue, you did not pursue, or what exactly happened? Why you did not move forward?
No, KU band broadcasting is a reality. I mean, it can be done. But the thing is that in India, the rainfall is so high in certain regions that you are bound to suffer certain amount of outage. In C-band also you suffer that outage, but that is very small, maybe about 20 minutes per year. But in KU band, it can be, in the months when rainfall is heavy, it can be 3 to 4 hours per day also. So therefore, there are different techniques of mitigation that you uplink from certain other areas where, like in the desert and so on. So you can control the uplink part, but the downlink is still, in rain-fed areas. The entire coastal belt of India, the western coast and part of the eastern coast are very heavy rainfall areas. So you can't really have KU band broadcasting, as a permanent thing. You can have it for metros and, some cities and so on.
Okay, all right. Thank you. We have some stalwarts joining in little late into the session. I wish they are here with us. But continuing with Harsimranjit, I want to ask you that in this the spectrum regulation and the spectrum challenges that we're going on, wherein it is constantly been under pressure by IMT, whereby their aspiration is to take away the entire C-band for the IMT. Of course, it is in conjunction with the India's obligation in WRC and how the ITU region 1, 2, 3 plays on, right? And that's how the 5G policy has been framed. But what is your take, Intelsat take on the C-band, and what is your outlook if tomorrow, like US, if India has to do away with the entire C-band? What is your take? What do you think? Because given the context that today in India, 900 channels are being uplinked by about 72 C-band transponders. So we are talking about what are our remedies in case of this happens and broadcasters will have no choice but to move to the alternate band. So what is your take on that?
Thanks, Rajdeep. So, see, the current downlink C-band from 3.7 to 4.2 gigahertz is just sufficient to maintain what we're doing on the pay TV side, right? So it's completely unthinkable that all those channels can be compressed within the 200 megahertz of the bandwidth in case the government decides to allocate up to 4 gigahertz to the telecommunication services. So I think our argument internationally is the same. Of course, you made an example of United States where it has already been done. But I think our the efforts in India is to push back on this. And I think we are learning from some of the countries where this particular band was utilized for 5G expansion and 5G services, which did not go very well, right? So probably our thought process is that instead of looking at the downlink 3.7 to 4.2 gigahertz, so the ideal band could be the 6 gigahertz band. That is precisely the uplink band for us, where the Earth stations are uplinking on the satellites. Very easy to mitigate the, let's say, interference issues with 5G. You could have Earth stations moved outside the city limits. You could have exclusion zones for the 5G deployment, right? And there are multiple ways to manage the impact in case they decide to use 6 gigahertz for the IMT services. So that is Intelsat's position, and that's the position we have been conveying to the regulators in India, globally, elsewhere, right? So everywhere. So, and we hope, at least in the short term, that in case the government decides to move on this from 3.7 onwards, that this is done in a transition with a step-by-step approach, right? So we are just very scared of the fact that in case it happens overnight and all those 300 megahertz up till 4 gig is gone, so absolutely no choice, right? So we'll have to stop services for all the channels which are below 4 gigahertz, downlinking below 4 gigahertz. So our hope from the policymakers, from the regulators is that this is done in a phased manner. Probably this is already, let's say, expectation that this is going to go to IMD eventually. It might take a while, but I think we can plan, we can prepare our customers. We could have more satellites, we could use different bands like KU. So depending on the region, depending on the kind of operation, so we could look at some custom requirements. For example, we are already deploying hybrid IP network for some of the customers who don't want a global beam, want a focus beam, but they still want to reach out to certain, let's say, European markets outside the coverage area. So I think solutions are there, but we hope that the regulators will keep in mind, let's say, the broadcast industry side of economy and balance it with the needs of the IMT companies. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I think with this, I would like to open the floor for question and answer. As I see, most of the audience is known to me, so I don't want to go ahead and do any marketing pitch for AsiaSat, but we've been here since 1992 with the inception of Z. We're a very proud partner of Z for the last 33 years now, and Star. We mean business, and I think we align with the changing landscape and the regulatory of India, and we are always open and happy to support. With this, I think I would like to put it open on the floor. Any question? I think I see Vishal asking the question here. Please take a Vishal.
Thank you, everybody, for this very informative session. Just in continuation what Harsimranjit Gill was saying, Rajdeep, you pioneered actually, I'm just talking about the interference. I have two questions. One on the interference.
Yes.
So AsiaSat, and under your guidance, I think you distributed each and every head end a band pass filter.
Correct.
So my question to you is that, does it mitigate the interference issue? It is for my information and for the audience information.
Very good question.
That's my first question, and I'll ask the second question later to the panel.
Sure. So I think this has been a writing on the walls, not in 2024, but I think since 2014. 2016 WRC meetings, this has been debated, and then the coalition of satellite operators has been able to defend the C-band spectrum, which eventually goes into in-country politics, and how it has moved is what everyone has witnessed. But learning from what has been happening, AsiaSat has, we have our own 25 patent, okay? We patented the 5G bandpass filter in various band, aligning to not only ITU region 3 where we fall in, but various ITU region. So we created precision bandpass filter which check the frequency beyond a certain band, and that also gone through various evolution. So, which is of course has to do with the pass band. So we have for particular India market close to about 3,000 bandpass filter we have already distributed. We are not a OEM or manufacturer, but this is to support the broadcaster and the receiver because it saturates the LNB. And in all our cases, it has worked. And I can give an example. I have installed without taking the name, with a mobile operator's terrace, which also is one of the largest broadcaster in India. So, and they have rejected the filters, the C-band interference. Similarly, in Middle East market, we have done it for 3800 frequency, which is very successfully. So yes, we have a partner in the room who has already distributed a product, and it is working perfectly fine. Yeah.
Thank you. My second and last question is to all the three panel One, from the satellite operator perspective, because you guys have maximum number of channels, carrying your channels on both your satellites. And of course the end user, right? Whether it's Pioneer in hits, as we all know, the current DTH operator, and the content aggregator and a content promoter and a content distributor. So my question to you is, over the past several years, I mean almost 2 decades, I have seen the process when it comes to the regulatory. This session is regulatory. So there have been acquisitions, mergers from the operators level, from the content operators level. The technologies have been a tectonic shift. You know, you got a digital now. Everywhere there's a FTA channel, as Amitabh ji correctly said, that you have different approval process from free to air for news broadcasting for the GEC. So have you seen any, Amitabh ji, in particular to you both, any changes in terms of the approval process, right? From you need to go to MIB, then SACFA, then DOT, then NOCC. Have you seen any process fast tracking it, the entire process? Earlier it used to take 6 to 9 months or something like that. Have you seen some change in that, in the regulatory overall approvals? Thanks.
Amitabh, do you want to take this first?
Yeah, okay. So actually, we have not really seen much improvement, though they have digitized the process, which means that they are not handling the files. But we are not really seen too much improvement in terms of, processing the applications and so on. So I guess, the things remain because there are multiple departments, the Ministry of Home Affairs, you need to get the the all kind of trademarks, and you need to get the Department of Space approvals and so on. So I think, this is still work in progress. That's what I'll say. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll echo the same thing. I have not seen any change, except that in between department their TET has fastened, but still since it involves multiple ministry, when it goes to certain ministry, you can't track it, you can't cover. So I think it still takes 6 to 9 months. Only blessings has been that downlink permission has become quicker. If you want only downlink permission, I think. And I must tell you that additionally, the uplink downlink policy has, I think, to great extent has become better with they allowing them to operate on 2 satellites. I think that has given a lot of good options to their broadcasters. So, but in nutshell, no, I don't think so. There is still an aspiration. This still regulator speaks about 1 window clearance, but we have yet to see that.
Thank you.
Yep. I think both of you have answered the question on the permissions and everything. I'll just like to highlight a different aspect of the regulatory approvals, right? So at least in terms of the new space policy and space guidelines, all of us are in the queue for the authorizations. At least that part is looking much more, let's say, dynamic. The government is adopting to global standards. They're trying to create a single window for all kinds of approvals as far as authorization is concerned. So I think at least it'll solve the problem of getting RBI approvals for the foreign remittances from MIB. So the point is, at least that'll bring the broadcaster closer to the operator. We can work better. We can invoice based on their, let's say, revenue generation timeframes, and not wait for some regulatory approval and wait 6 to 9 months and just spoil the relationship because of that. Yeah, thank you.
But on that part, I have a session on day 3 on the tax complication, okay? So there is a elephant in the room which needs to be addressed while we're talking about the in-country authorization. But for that, you have to stay tuned to day 3. Thank you. So thank you so much for being so patient and without leaving the room. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for giving your time. Thank you so much.
All right, so we'll move ahead with the felicitation ceremony. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for all the discussion. May I request the chair, Mr. Rajdeep Gohil, to kindly felicitate the fellow panelists, Mr. Amitabh Kumar.
Thank you so much, Amitabh. Thank you.
And Mr. Harsimranjit Gill. May I call upon Kaushiki Singh from SIA-INDIA to kindly felicitate the chair.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And we can have a group picture as well.
Yeah.